to another episode of the Fanzone podcast. Your home for all things Bolton Wanderers, up the Trotters, the Northwest's #1 podcast.
Good evening and welcome to another episode of the Fanzone podcast. Tonight is 113 episode of the Fanzone podcast, titled Boo, and then in brackets LE. I think you came up with that one, Chris. Is that right?
I'm not that witty.
No. Fair enough.
No, I think it was Mr. Timberlake came up with that. But there was a few mentions of it on Twitter last night, wasn't there?
Yeah.
From Booze to LA in 70 minutes, should I say.
Yeah.
If anything summed our wonderful football club up and its fan base, it was that. Good evening, channel members. David, good evening to you. Good evening to Brandon. Hello. Lee, good evening to you. And everybody else in between. Good evening. Leslie, Ian, superstars, a lot of you. Mr. Evertote himself, Dan. Good evening, Dan.
Hey.
Hope we're keeping well. Nice to have you here tonight. Yes, of course, Colin is at the wheel, David. However, we are all one team, so we're all equally at the wheel in many respects. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, but lovely to have you all here tonight. I hope you're all keeping well. Of course, yesterday we managed to salvage 3 points against the might. That is, yeah, you know. Let's move on. Let's get into the post-match reactions there. As touched upon, as I said, yesterday we managed to get 3 points against Mansfield Town following a 3-1 victory. Chris, I used the word salvage a second ago. You didn't seem too overly impressed with that particular word. I weren't sure. I'll start with yourself. What's your immediate reaction following yesterday's victory against the Stags?
The first 70 minutes was painful to watch. Painful. We had a very positive spell, as we all saw in the first half, for about 10 minutes. But other than that, it was just lacking in so many areas. There were just fundamentals, just basic passing and basic movement and basic transitions, passing detail. Passing detail is a big thing for us. It really, really bugs me. It's a pet peeve of mine. Just simple, crisp passing. Just putting it into a path, putting it into a run, as opposed to just slightly behind. Just little things where it's just not clicking. Obviously, everybody's going to say it, and everybody has said it, that the red card made a massive difference, probably changed the outcome of the game. We'll never know whether it did or it didn't. So obviously we can't turn back time and change it, but I think the substitutions that were made created a completely different pattern of play, injected a load of energy in there. Not Lolos, he's not getting many plaudits. A lot of it is going down to Osei Tutu, and I thought, yeah, whilst he was excellent, I thought Lolos surprised me. He really did. He was very direct. He was very strong. He was very quick. And in the first half, the issues that we had were centrally. There were just swaths of space in the middle, and he plugged them quite simply. So salvage, I don't know about that.
Well, I use that simply because we were 1-0 down.
We were losing, weren't we? Yeah, of course we were. But I don't know. I just saw some it's easy to lose the positives with all the negativity that's going on. And look, I'm not saying anything different to anyone else in terms of Ian Everett's position at the club. I'm not saying anything different. But it's just getting a little bit tiresome that the agenda's switched and nothing can be positive. It always has to be negative. And there always has to be a negative connotation around everything. And it's getting a bit tiresome now. If I see another corner flag, I swear to God, you've got to be realistic now. You've got to look at it from this. It isn't progress. We expected top two, and we're good enough. That team is good enough for top two. Yeah, fine. We understand that. But whilst we are within an iota of the playoffs in terms of points, which we are, there will not be a change. We've seen that. We've spoke about January business already with Everett in the same sentence. He's obviously recruited another member of staff. He has lost the fans. There's a lot, but
yeah. Can I just reference? Sorry, Chris. Can I just reference Ian's comment very quickly?
Yeah.
Ian, I've seen that. I've saved the comment, and that will be discussed at some point during the podcast. That won't be ignored because I think that's a very valid point. Before we went live, me and Chris were chatting about a bit of a lack of fan focus segment for this evening. And I do think, Chris, providing and all, obviously you're happy with that.
Yeah.
Can we address Ian's comment later on in the episode?
I think we should. But isn't it going over with all due respect to Ian and his comment, which you might as well bring it up for context, Colin.
Yeah.
Ian Lomax, thanks, Ian. Everett has lost the fans, and if they sell season tickets in February, I won't renew, and plenty of fans won't either. Respect it, absolutely. We're all supporters. We're all entitled to a view. We're all entitled to, talk and voice our issues with our feet. We're all our own people. We can all do what we want. But I just feel we're going overground with it.
The point for me, though, we might as well discuss it now. I know we're in the post-match reaction section, but we're talking about it, aren't we? For me, that comment is very relevant in the sense that when it starts hitting the pocket of the ownership group in terms of revenue, that's when things become a little bit not ideal.
Yeah,
would you mind
saying absolutely
makes it more real? Yeah.
So that will be it'll be obvious. They'll be obviously banking on, or they would have been banking on X amount of money coming into the club in January on them renewals for next season or whenever it is. And he's absolutely right. People will not renew for next season so early like they've done previous years.
Yeah, I think
still in charge.
It's I hear it and I agree with it, and it will from a club finance perspective, it will hit. However, I think we've also got to be mindful of the fact that given that season ticket prices have been frozen season on season for a good number of seasons, I wouldn't expect. In fact, I'd be very, very surprised if there isn't a hike in pricing for next season, because they can't freeze it forever.
No, of course not. No.
Inflation, etc.
Yeah,
they just can't continue to do it. It just becomes a loss leader. So I think they're probably expectant of the fact that will reduce anyway. But I think it's not great, is it, having supporters not being in the stadium at the end of the day? We're looking at progress, but tricky one.
But all the players can do is continue to win football matches. Ben, what about yourself from yesterday? Obviously, I know you're very much a glass half full Wanderers fan in the most part. But what were your thoughts on, not necessarily the game, but once again, the way in which the lads turned it round? I mean, I've seen people commenting and saying the red card made a massive difference, but I do think we would have had a bit of traction personally going into that final half an hour, even if that lad hadn't got sent off. But yeah, Ben, what are your thoughts, mate?
Yeah, I mean, pretty much like the Blackpool game, wasn't it? First half, which was kind of a game of nothing, and then they score a header from across, unmarked, about 34 minutes, pretty much the same time as the Blackpool game.
Yeah.
And after we had an all right first 10-15 minutes, which kind of fizzled out a bit. Obviously going to half time 1-0 down. Not ideal, but obviously the reaction was good. We were better the second half, even before the red card. I don't know if we would have scored 3 or if we would have turned it around. Who knows? We will never know, will we? But the reaction was better. We missed a couple of good chances even before the sending off. I think they had 1 shot in the whole second half. And so even from minute 45 to 70, they barely even registered. I think the subs made a massive impact. That what you're mentioning, Chris, about being overly positive, overly negative, and you have to be a balance. Everyone's saying the only reason we won is because of the red card. No, it's not. A part of the reason, obviously, it's a factor. You can address the two things. The factor we won is because of the red card, but also another big factor we won is because of the subs. And all 3 of the goals were due to the subs at some point. I'll say to a good cross for the first one, flicked onto Charles. For the second one, really good work down the left-hand side to cut it back to Adebiojo. And then the third one, Lolos basically pipped at the ball just inside our own half and drove to the edge of the penalty area.
Yeah, so I hear you, Ben, but I think that's part of the reason why people get so frustrated with the current situation, because we know the players that are coming off the bench are good enough to be starting for the majority of the teams in this league.
They are.
No, I get it. My point then was just say you can't have it all one way.
Yeah.
It's only the red card, and
of course
any team would have scored 3 goals in that position. Because look at us last week. We the same position, red card for 40 minutes, and we were a shambles. So it's different, different factors, aren't there? You made the right subs this week to change the game.
I think so.
Yeah. Carl's just put in the chat. It was 4 subs. It was very interesting to see who went off. It was 4 key players. It was Sheehan, who you don't see come off very often. Josh Jacobs
game yesterday, didn't he?
Back.
I think we may be dealing with Ben's dial-up internet for once. But yeah, the subs made a massive difference. I think what Ben's getting at, Chris, is that right?
Yeah, I think so. I think as well, you've got to look at it. But I think what the point he was making was that the point he was picking up on from the chat was it was 4 key players that were taken off. Sheehan had a poor game by his standards. I think as well, you've also got to consider, and it's that saying, don't get too high and don't get too low, blah, 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 blah. But there was a lot of hype around Osei Tutu, and he looked brilliant when he came on. You'd be a madman to say anything different. However, him starting, he must start. He's got to start. Was the overall consensus on Twitter. He's got to start. When's Osei? Absolutely, but you've got to also consider what's he been out for? 6 weeks.
Oh yeah.
And he's a very, very injury-prone player as well, which is why he's playing for us in League One.
Absolutely,
he's a very athletic player, which makes you, more susceptible to injuries, doesn't it, as well? So he's going to go past players and
he showed it last night. He showed it in an abundance, and I hope he does start, and I hope he's a regular feature in the team. However, it's that balance in terms of his fitness and introducing him back into the frame without him having a recurrence of the same injury or another injury. It's the same with Lolos as well. He showed why we bought him last night when he came on. And again, he's been injured. Obviously, he got injured in the Orient game, first game of the season. So you've just got to be really, really careful.
Sorry, Chris, as well, just to add to that, this is, I have to be very careful what I say because I know people's opinion is Josh Decker's Cogley, but we are so susceptible to getting caught. Our defensive record this season has been appalling. And I do think that with Josh Decker's Cogley being taken out, people are going to laugh and probably shake their head at this, but he offers. I think he offers a little bit more defensively than what Osei-Tutu would do. So in certain situations where you might need to shore it up a little bit or get Cogley maybe to play tuck in as maybe one of the other right-sided centre halves to go more defensive, you've got that option. Whereas obviously with Osei-Tutu, you clearly haven't. He's a winger or he's a wing back, isn't he? Yeah. So I think that's also something to consider as well when we talk about playing Osei-Tutu. However, to counter that, when we're at home, and as you all know, I say all the time that we should beat every single team at our home stadium. There's absolutely no excuses for it. We should be going out to win every single game at home, play them at home, because I think you're going to be on the front foot 9 times out of 10. So that makes sense. But to say down the middle, play Osei-Tutu has to start, I think it's a difficult one to
just on them two, Osei-Tutu and Lolos. It's been two things me and my dad have been talking about this season when we're watching us. Is we're missing that either the wing. We talk about we're not had a Premier League loanee this season. We're missing that either dynamism out wide that we had with Bradley and Fossey and even Kyoso going back a couple of years. Or someone in midfield that will pick it up and go past people, which we had in Magoma last season. Matete's shown he can do it sometimes, not at the level that Magoma can. But the two of the goals last night were just players doing that. Lolas picked it up, drove 40 yards of the ball, and said no one's taking it off me. Same with Osei-Tutu. Picked up for that second goal. He did brilliant. The second goal, he picked it up outside the edge of the box and just darted past their man, got to the byline and picked someone out. It's two things we've missed quite a bit. Sean does it sometimes. He's not as direct and as quick as Osei-Tutu, but he's got it in the bag. But he does just look really exciting.
Yeah, absolutely. We won the game. So as a result of that, generally there's one or two shouts for man of the match. So I reckon we go into that segment. What do you think, lads?
Yeah.
Why not?
Yeah, it's a happy man of the match segment, which we didn't have last week. But it's always good after a win. I mean, it's a tough one because obviously we won the game after 4 changes made. The first 60, 70 minutes weren't great. So it'd be interesting to see what everyone says. Get your answers in the chat as always, and we'll pick some out to talk about. But Cole, who are you having?
I tweeted pretty much straight after the game that I thought Osei-Tutu was man of the match, and it was a little bit of a tongue-in-cheek thing, to be honest, because obviously he'd only played like 25 minutes or whatever it was. So it's a bit of a highlights of how poor of a first half we had and how we weren't at our best once again. So I'm going to stick with that. In fairness, I think he's, like you say, he's dynamism, and I think he's a level above. You can clearly see it. He's got that look of a player that's better than the level. Is as best as a way I can describe him. And I think he can be a really great asset for the football club, providing that he stays fit. I'd like to see him more often, then I'd be able to form more of an opinion on his defensive capabilities. Obviously, I'd formed an opinion previously based on seeing him for very little, but I just think, like I said, that he doesn't seem to look the best defensively. But that, again, we haven't seen a great deal of him, have we? So, but yeah, a bit of a ramble, but yeah, I have to say Osei-Tutu was great when he came on and played a massive part in us winning that game.
One vote for Osei-Tutu. He's been quite popular in the comments, but also a few other shouts. Chris, who are you having?
I don't think I agree with Dan. I know it's not serious. It's enormously sarcastic. Not like Dan at all, is it? But saying that Vic was his man of the match, his hold-up play in his first touch is second to none. No. sarcasm is the lowest form of wit, Mr. Bowles. I can't, even though the performance was substandard for a good hour yesterday, I can't give it to a player who only played 25 minutes. I really struggle with that. Call me old-fashioned. He was brilliant. He really was. He was a joy to watch. Birmingham were 2-0 up. He was a joy to watch. It's one of them players he plays with a smile on his face. He's got it, and he just hopefully he can stay fit. But for me, my man of the match was Jay Matete. Simple. He just did the bits that nobody else wanted to do really well. He always looked like he had time on the ball. Played what I was talking about before about passing detail. His passing detail in the main was excellent. Couldn't fault him. He shone for me. So for me, Jay Matete.
Fair enough. Yeah, I thought Matete did well, especially after the subs. He basically got left on his own in midfield. I know Lolas was there with him, and I guess McAtee was there with him, but I mean they're attacking midfielders / forwards, if anything. So Matete, kind of glued the midfield on his own. Talking about Vic before, I actually don't think he played as bad as anyone's making out. Brandon said I think his hold up play was actually pretty good. It was his layoffs. I just don't think anyone was close enough to him. I mean, obviously he missed that awful chance.
I'm laughing, Ben, but I swear, I promise you that I was actually going to say once you'd give your man of the match about Vic, and I actually felt quite sorry for him yesterday because as a centre forward, he grafted pretty hard to be honest, and it was obvious that it wasn't going to end up his way. And I'm in a bit of agreement really. Things just weren't falling for him and bouncing off him and all that horrible stuff that you don't want as a centre forward. And that miss, I'm so happy he reacted by scoring that second anyway. Sorry, Ben, I'm stealing your thunder a little bit.
You were right above that, weren't you? Obviously, where you sit, Paul, you're looking right down on it. Obviously, I saw it live, and
I'm happy to give my opinion on what went wrong with that with Vic.
Yeah, feel free. I
just don't think he sorted his feet out quick enough, to be honest.
Yeah.
He should.
Yeah,
he should have.
I think he didn't really expect to get it, did he?
He didn't.
Chasing down his pass, and then all of a sudden, he's one of them where you think it's going to go to the keeper, and he's going to get, try and stop the clearance. But he actually ended up at it. You're right.
Yeah, he had a nightmare of a match, and he should have scored that. Let's be honest with you, but. He just didn't open his body up, and you should probably go on with his left foot. But it's all hindsight, isn't it? But he just didn't sort his feet out quick enough. Is basically the reason why I missed it.
Yeah.
Anyway, go on, Ben.
No, it's fine. He got his goal as well. Anyway, good centre forward play. Always there in the 6-yard box. That's where he wanted to be. It was. But yeah, I mean, I thought Matete was good. I thought McAtee was decent. I thought he huffed and puffed to try to get things going. Obviously, got his goal as well. Nice finish. His first league goal at home, I'm pretty sure that is, isn't it?
Yeah, it was.
Yeah, I'm not sure if he scored in the cups at home. Anyway, sure. But yeah, I'll say 2-2 for me. I know Chris's rule about can't give it to a guy who played 25 minutes, but and also a few shouts to Ricardo Santos, who has been great in the last few weeks and was just his normal good self last night again. But yeah, for me, I'll say 2-2.
There we are. I'll say 2-2 gets the Fanzone man of the match for what it's worth.
Well done.
Wonderful cameo performance. Of course, we do have a game this coming weekend against Bristol Rovers. Statman will be with you in due course to go through that. But before we do, I just want to say a massive thank you to the 108 people currently watching tonight's episode. So thank you very much for your support as ever. If you could like and subscribe, that'd be really appreciated. We have seen the numbers in the likes on YouTube drop recently a little bit. So we can get a few likes. That'd be really, really much appreciated. As I've said, as I always say, it goes a long way to help us get in the eyes and ears of other Bolton fans who may not know about us. But yeah, let's have the stat man do his thing. Yeah, what do you reckon?
You.
Yee.
Hello everybody, welcome back to Get Stats On with the Statman in his Christmas jumper. Yes, that does just say Christmas jumper, full stop, but why not? You know, I thought it was quite funny. Probably not, but that is my type of humour. This segment is, of course, sponsored by Jen Louise Salmon, and you all know the line. Put it in the chat. If you're buying a gaff, give her a bell. Of course, it is more complex than that, I am sure, but mortgage is not exactly my speciality as a university student. But anyway, we're not here to talk about houses and that. We're here to talk about football. And specifically, Bristol Rovers is your next league game. And they are currently 15th in the league. Got packed in 3-0 last night by Leyton Orient. So, you know, there's a possibility. They are absolutely dreadful away from home, but you're playing them at Bristol anyway, so that doesn't really matter. They've scored 17 goals this season from 16 XG, which is, you know, it's all right. They probably should have scored maybe one or two more from that, but, you know, it's quite sustainable. But they could easily go on a good goal scoring run of form from that anyway. I thought this was quite interesting. They've not had a penalty in the league this season at all. And they must be one of the only teams to do that. I've not actually checked, but I can't imagine there's many who haven't won a pen yet. So my bad if I've jinxed that and you give away a penalty. However, their defensive stats are a bit more interesting because they concede 1.4 goals a game. So you should score a minimum of a goal, if not two, really. They conceded the most XG in the league by a mile. And I won't swear, because we're not that type of podcast, but bloody hell, they are woeful. But their keeper appears to be quite good, because he's made 4 saves per game, which is actually first in the league for how many saves per game. So, you know, you'll get the opportunity to get shots off, but they've got to be good shots if they're going to go in, put it that way. They're also first for interceptions and clearances of any team in the league per game, which is quite interesting. But they're not going to press you too much. If they're going to win the ball, they're going to win it in midfield. And they're going to sit in a mid-block most of the time, from my understanding anyway. And try to be quite hard to break down, probably force you wide. They play a 4-2-3-1. So that formation in itself leaves let me try to speak again, because that's clearly not my strong point. There's not a lot of room in the midfield, is what I'm trying to say. There's not much room to play in between the lines, because they've got 2 sitting midfielders, and they've got 1 who could easily drop back and make it a flat 3. Anyway, we're on to the screenshots. So screenshot 1 now. These are the average positions from their 3-0 loss against Leyton Orient. And you can see it clearly didn't work in this game because they got beat 3-0. But there is absolutely no space in the middle of the pitch. They're all right next to each other and absolutely nowhere near the wing. So that is probably going to oh my God, I can't speak. Probably what they're going to do, force you wide, which kind of suits the formation you play anyway. But we'll come on to that in a second. Screenshot 2 now. That was a good clap, man. These are also the average positions, but from their 1-0 win against Mansfield. Of course, you have just played Mansfield, so that's quite interesting, I thought. Anyway, there is a lot more space because they clearly thought they could go more attacking in this game. But you can still see how deep their defence is. So long balls, there's no point in this game. It'll be more about having lots of the ball and trying to break them down, which has not really been the strong point this season. But anyway, we move. Yeah, but you can see in that screenshot as well how close the centre mids are together. Even though there is a lot of space, they're still trying to leave as little as possible in between the midfield and the defence. So my advice in this game would be make sure you play the wing backs on their natural sides. That means left footer on the left and a right footer on the right. And that may seem quite normal, but in this game, it's going to be absolutely necessary if you want anything. Because if they're forcing you wide, what can you do from the wing? You can put a cross in. And yeah, that would be my general idea anyway. Because even if you can't break down a team, you can normally get the ball wide and put a cross in. most of the time. Not always, obviously. But I think that's how you win this game anyway, from good crosses into the box. That is me done for today, and I will see you on the next post-match not press conference. What am I saying? I can't speak at all. Clearly, something's gone wrong in my head. I'll see you on the next post-match podcast. Enjoy the rest of the podcast. Thank you very much, and I'll see you later. Goodbye.
Do you reckon he was distracted by that poor attempt of a beard that he's trying to grow?
Yeah, what was that?
Possibly the reason why he's not
I
been
thought it was something to do with his lighting. I thought it was a shadow or something.
No, I think that's an attempt at a beard.
Nice work.
Can't blame him, lad. Trying, can you, really, to be fair?
Fair dues
indeed. No, thank you very much, Statman. Greatly appreciate that. Takeaways from that, I think, I guess the fact that you can get out and buy your deliveries from the wide areas, bit of a concern because I don't think that's generally our strong point. I don't think we obviously work it wide well, but we're more intricate, aren't we, when it comes to that? We should be going there and beating them. Let's be honest with you, and I'm very surprised actually with Bristol Rovers because I kind of thought that when they got that fella in charge, the new manager, I'd read quite a few kind of good things about him. Is it Matt Taylor?
Yeah.
And they've kind of like not gone anywhere, have they? And they've gone backwards.
Yeah.
It's a bit of a surprise, to be honest.
The fan response last night, including Charlie from, is it what they call Ben?
Talking Gas, isn't it?
Talking Gas. God, yeah. We've only done about 9 pods with them. Charlie was saying, and most Bristol Rovers fans were saying that they were absolutely appalled. Worst performance I've ever seen.
It's the second game in a row they've had 0 shots on target, by the way.
Yeah.
So
you know what's coming, don't you?
Yeah. I did give him some assurances that Charity Wanderers are in town on Saturday, so worry not, mate. But still, it didn't work. I'm afraid it didn't help him at all one bit. So.
Yeah.
We will. I mean, we'll talk about that tomorrow night, won't we? We have Charlie on the preview at the earlier time of 7:30. Just for anyone that won't be able to see our socials or anything tomorrow. Tomorrow we'll post about it again. But yeah, just in case anyone doesn't see, it's 7:30 tomorrow night, slightly earlier.
Good. Well, obviously we can delve into that a little bit more detail, can't we, with Bristol Rovers and whatnot. Looking forward to that. I've got a little bit annoyed because I've just seen a comment in the chat from David saying that Ruben Sellers is off to Hull.
Yeah.
Deserves that. Good manager. That has annoyed me a little bit, to be honest.
I'd find that a bit odd from him, to be honest. I think that Hull are a bit of a basket case at the minute. I don't know. I feel like he could go there and be sacked within a couple of months. So he could hold out for a better job, I think.
Yeah. Good point there for my friend BWFC714. Yeah, he is. That is quite correct. There was an announcement from the club last week.
Yeah.
So whatever's going on.
You do see this, don't you? It's good with social media, isn't it? That you see these bits of information, bits of news that you wouldn't maybe ordinarily see. Because obviously the Premier League takes all the coverage, doesn't it? And rightly so. But yeah, obviously, but well wishes, I guess, is all we can say on that front, really.
Of course.
I did wonder why their assistant manager was doing the interview yesterday, but I completely forgot about that.
It can't help matters. Obviously, they're in a poor vein of form, and I imagine there will be thoughts outside of football from the players in terms of whatever it is that's going on with Matt Taylor and his family or whatever it is. So,
hopefully we can pick up them 3 points, and obviously we'll discuss it tomorrow, though. And hopefully Aaron Collins can perform better than he did yesterday, because that was appalling, to be honest.
Anyway.
But yeah, Fanzone, Fan Focus, Chris, what are we saying? Why?
Well, it's an interesting one tonight, or not, as the case may be, in the sense that we've had nothing. So everything must be all right. Yeah, we just crack on. Yeah, I think it's worthwhile. We were talking about it earlier, and I think was it yourself, Ben, who mentioned? Oh, it was Callum actually. You flagged it, and I think it's a really good point. And he's just raised it again in his stats pack for the Bristol Rovers game in terms of how they set up, and it was something that was questioned last night. Playing inverted wing backs, so we were playing with Dacres Cogley on the wrong side or the right side, as it turned out, and Sean on the opposite side. And if those who are watching and not washing their hair, Mr. Vols, in Callum's pre-match for the Mansfield game, he mentioned how they defend at fullback and how they leave massive gaps. And Evan touched upon it in his post-match presser that the reason why he inverted them is they identified this. You probably watched Callum's little stat pack. And what he wanted them to be able to do was cut inside on the natural foot, on the strong foot, which makes sense to exploit those gaps. There was a couple of instances where McAtee triggered it with Cogley a couple of times. And I guess, with all the hubris that's going on with Everett and what have you, I think you've got to also consider the fact that he's got a job to do, and if you identify a weakness, making a change, even if it's little Mansfield or whatever, whoever it is, that
Is that dig at me?
Say again. No, just generally. It was more based on some of the comments on Twitter about it that we should be front foot. We probably will be. I think the plan probably was to be front foot. It didn't quite work, but you've got to have a plan B. We've been saying it for a long time, haven't we? And yeah, it's all about learning. It's all about identifying weaknesses in your opposition and using analytics to do so. So it was interesting to see that and to see him try something a little bit different. And it's something he can do in future games. So you've got to give him a little bit of credit. Also, I think somebody mentioned it earlier, and it's not been mentioned a lot because it's kind of been brushed under the carpet somewhat, that the incident in the second half yesterday, which was the through ball that their striker challenged for with Nathan Baxter. I don't know what you two think about it. I thought we were fortunate to get away with that. I thought it was certainly a ball that I'd expect Dion, Vic, et al. To challenge for if the roles were reversed. So,
well, I mean, the ball was certainly there to be challenged for. It was a 50-50, and the ref clearly thought that the lad left a bit on the keeper. You might consider it unlucky, and I think it would be unlucky if it was the other way around. But yeah, I think that if he thinks he left some on him, then that's why it was a yellow card. It's difficult to argue against it, really.
Yeah, I've not seen it back afterwards, but
I'm in the North Stand, so it's difficult to kind of see where we're at. So, but yeah,
I've seen it back as well. I always go with, obviously, watching a lot of football, predominantly Premier League football, because it's easily accessible. But you are obviously, your thoughts are kind of, you're mindful, obviously, of VAR all the time, and obviously we don't have that. That I always go with my gut instinct, what I see instantly, and go with that. And at the time, I thought we got away with one there, and seeing it back, I think definitely we were quite fortunate. But hey ho, a bit of luck here and there goes a long way. But yeah, it's good to see that people are happy. No comments. I think you can only go over the same thing so many times, to be honest with you.
It's becoming a little bit tiresome having to go over the same negativity, to be honest with you. Obviously, I've been very vocal over this last few weeks over what my opinions are on the situation. And yesterday, once again, I lost my rag at half time. But there's not really much we can do about it at this stage. We all know that he's here to stay. So let's just shelve that negativity as best we can towards Ian Evatt and just focus it on backing the players, because ultimately that's what they need, really. Because again, not reading off Ian Evatt's hymn sheet, but he often says that to play the way we play, the players need confidence, and that's abundantly clear. Because once we get on the players' back, they go into the shell. They don't show for the ball, and that's why we end up just all over the place, which is what happened in the first half yesterday. But I am a little bit touching upon it just slightly, quickly, the negativity situation. I'm not a huge fan of this. It seems to be us against them thing that's been created. This can go one way or the other, to be honest. It could work, and they could all turn around and shove two fingers up us at the end of the season when we get promoted. Fingers crossed that happens. I hope they do that. But all this shushing from the players,
I
don't know. It's obvious. Where's that aimed at? It's clearly aimed at the fans, isn't it? Really.
I think the biggest example of it, obviously, was the Santos incident, Bridgegate, if you want to call it that.
Yeah.
With his family getting involved and stuff like that, and him not applauding the fans, and
they are all as one, aren't they? I get that.
Yeah, I think it's quite petulant in many ways, but I get it. It must be difficult, but part of the job and all that. And I also, and I mentioned it last night, whilst I thought it was quite a reasonable post-match interview with Evatt, I thought he spoke.
I thought that as well.
Yeah. I thought he spoke well, and you'll know. I've not been watching them. I've been paying me £5, and I've not been watching them. I think I've watched 2 out of the last 10, something daft like that. And it was great, and I thought he spoke well. But there was the dig in there about having most wins of any EFL manager. And you know what? Absolutely, be proud of your achievements and stuff. But yeah, of course. But it's the context that it was.
Tell us that when you're second or first.
Yeah, it wasn't that. It was the context of the interview. It was like, hang on a minute, where have you pulled that from? Why have you had to get that in there? It was just.
Well, I mean, he said it because he's been here for 250 games, hasn't he? It is kind of in the context of the conversation.
Be proud of them, absolutely. But throwing that in at this juncture when things are as they are, I thought was.
But he could quite easily get that in, couldn't he, if we were sat first or second in the league.
Oh yeah, 100%.
In April,
and everyone would be gassing him up for it.
It's nearly his 300th game, and he could go. You know, I'm really happy that it's nearly my 300th game, and over that time period, I've got us the most amount of wins in the EFL. If you said it that way, when we're first and second, it's like
it's not what you say; it's the way you say it, isn't it?
And when you say it, more important.
I just thought, look, I'd respect you more if you rose above it.
Yeah,
not ignore it because it's quite clearly there, but.
Do you think this goes back, Chris? And obviously, you're more of an experienced football fan than me, and a lot of people, I guess you could say. But
it's a nice way of saying you're old.
Yeah. No, what I mean by that is you've seen a lot. You've seen a lot, and you understand kind of what it takes to be a manager. Is what I'm getting at as a football club. What I'm going to say is, do you think that is a little bit of him still learning on the job?
Naivety.
Naivety.
Yeah. It is. Of course, it is. He will improve his media training and his repetition and just going through the process time and time again will inevitably, by volition, make him improve and become more level-headed and become more sort of mindful and sensitive to the surroundings and all that. And as Leslie said, she put it into 5 words where I put it into about 70. Ever puts his foot in it every week, needs to learn to keep his gob shut. I think that is what I'm trying to say in a more measured way. You know, Dan said the same thing. He can't help himself. But it's a tricky one.
It's just an observation, isn't it? Listen, we've just literally, I said a matter of 5 minutes ago, we need to move away from the negativity and stuff, and we're going over it again, aren't we? But it's just frustrating, isn't it?
He does it, so why shouldn't we do it? You know, let's compare him to Pep. What did he do at Anfield when he was being told he was getting sacked in the morning? Yeah. Bit of a coincidence that he reminded everybody of his accolades. Anyway.
We have a pizza cup, don't we? So, you know.
Yeah. So, there you go. But, yeah, slightly different. It's kind of raw dogging on Fan Focus this week and doing it on the fly. But I'm sure that it'll only be a matter of time before you can't contain yourself. Just get it off your chest.
Use us as a soundboard, eh? That's the idea, isn't it?
Get it out there. It's cathartic. So, thank you for listening.
Massive thank you to the 129 people who've watched tonight's episode. Wonderful, wonderful humans. I greatly appreciate your time, of course, spending it with us. Thank you for the support. Also, I'm not too sure on the numbers that are going down to Bristol Rovers on Saturday, but credit where credit's due. I will not be going to that stadium ever again, but fair play to you if you are. And once again, to plug the preview show tomorrow, of course, it is episode 42 of the preview, and it's at 7:30 tomorrow evening. Ben, and who've we got on, Ben? Just one more little plug of that, please, pal.
Charlie from Talking Gas podcast, Bristol Rovers podcast. It's good guy. We've had him on before.
Knows his stuff, and I'm guessing he's going to come on with a little bit of frustration following the result yesterday, and he's been quite vocal on socials, hasn't he, over his thoughts of the current situation.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
But yeah, thank you very much to everyone who's joined us tonight. Like I said before, if you could like, subscribe, that'd be greatly appreciated. Have a lovely evening. Unfortunately, Everton are winning 3-0, which is kind of spoiled mine. But
what's going on with Wolves?
See you on the other side. Can't believe I wanted Wolves to win, but never mind. Ta-ra.
Good night.